So let's talk about electron configurations. So again, an electron configuration is really just a way to list all of the orbitals that electrons occupy in an atom. So for example, if I take a hydrogen atom, all right, so this is helpful when you have a periodic table in front of you, okay, and then I'll go to one on the next slide. Hydrogen, if I go ahead and read it from left to right, hydrogen is in the first energy level, okay, and the electron is in an s orbital, and there's one electron. So the electron configuration for this is 1s1. If I go to helium, we would say helium, I read the periodic table from basically left to right. We have the first energy level with an s orbital, and now we have what? 2 electrons, okay? Let's go further down on the periodic table to the next atom. So let's take lithium, for example. So lithium still, as I mentioned before, still has these other electrons, right? So that means lithium has a 1s orbital with 2 electrons in it, because that 1s orbital is full. It has both electrons in it. And then we move to the second energy level. And remember, as I mentioned before on the periodic table, the left-hand side has s orbitals, so this would be an s orbital, and there's only 1 electron in it, all right? So if I can kind of draw the periodic table for you guys since I don't have it right in front of you right now. Okay, so here's hydrogen, here's helium, here's lithium. See how I'm reading this periodic table here? I'm going into the first energy level, right? That's an s orbital. So this is the 1s, 2 electrons. Then I get to 2s, okay? And there's 1 electron. If I go to beryllium, that would turn into 1s2, 2s2, all right? Let's go ahead and take something like carbon, which is a little bit longer. So carbon on the periodic table, let's go ahead and write it all out. So we have beryllium here, then we have boron, then we have carbon. So if I were going to figure out the electron configuration for carbon, I would start at the top of the periodic table. So there were those first electrons in the s orbital, 1s, 1, 2. And then I come to the second energy level, 2s. And then there was 1, 2 electrons in the 2s orbital. And then what did I show in that previous chart? Remember, I showed that here were s orbitals. On this side was p orbitals, except for helium up here. In here, this was d orbitals, right? And then down here was f. So once I get over here, I'm still in the second energy level, right? But now I am in the p orbitals. So this is 2p. And then there's 1, 2 electrons. Okay. And so there's another way that I can go ahead and abbreviate this, right? Because once you see we get further down on the periodic table, it's going to get really tedious, right? I'm going to go 1s2, 2s2, 2p, whatever it is, so on and so forth. So there's a way to abbreviate it based on the previous noble gas. So rather than having to write out all of this stuff here, noble gases are in this column or this group here. And so if you start at the previous noble gas, which is helium, you put it in brackets, and that basically accounts for everything prior to this. So we would start here at 2s, 2, 2p2, right? Because basically right here, right here, again, that's just describing helium. Okay, so that's another way we can go ahead and abbreviate this. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the periodic table and we'll do bromine. So let's find bromine. Bromine's all the way over here. So let's do the electron configuration for bromine. Okay. And so let's actually circle this. All right. So again, all of these electrons, remember, are slowly building themselves up in these orbitals. It's kind of like, think of almost like an onion skin. You have an inner part of the onion, and then you go out further. There's another part, then further, right? So there's all of these electrons, followed by all of these electrons, followed by all of these, right? And that's what's going to give you bromine. So let's do the electron configuration for that. So we'll go ahead and do it down here because I think you'll be able to see it better. So bromine's electron configuration, I start here. So this is 1, n equals 1, s orbitals, so 1s2. Then I get to the second energy level, and over here are s orbitals, so 2s, 1, 2. Then I get over here, which is also the second energy level. So this is still 2. So this is the p orbitals. So this is 2p, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which makes sense, right? Because remember, there's 3 different types of p orbitals, right? There's a px orbital, a py orbital, and a pz orbital sticking out at you guys, right? And so if there's 3 different p orbitals, it makes sense that there are 6 electrons, right? Because each orbital holds 2 electrons, okay? Then we get to the third energy level over here. So then this is 3s, and there's 1, 2 electrons. Then we get over here, and so this is 3 p orbitals, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 electrons, so we're still not to bromine yet. So 3p6. Then we get down here, which is energy level 4. So there's 4s2, right? 1, 2. And then we get here. Okay, so remember, this is the tricky part, and we're going to talk about this once we start doing orbital energy diagrams. Okay, this is energy level 3 for d orbitals, and 4, right? Then 5, then 6. And so remember that when we get here, this is actually going to drop down. So make sure you do remember that, okay? We're not typically going to deal with the f orbitals, but remember this dropped down even further, right? We labeled that previously. So let's not actually go ahead and worry about that right now, but I will go ahead and label that this again was 4 and that was 5. So this goes in here. So you kind of see everything's 1 less than what it's next to. All right, so what are we at? We're now at the 3, okay? So this is drops down to energy level 3, and again, we'll talk about that later. In here are the d orbitals. So 3d, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that should make sense, right? Because there are 5 different types of d orbitals with 2 electrons each, giving us a total of 10 electrons. And then we get back over here. So once we get back over here, remember that this goes back up to energy level 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay. So now we're back at energy level 4, and we're in the we're in the p orbitals. So 4p, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.